to switch.
I want to go back and forth. Yeah.
So you'll have to escape to cancel that,
Yeah.
and then switch to here.
So I hit escape, and then what do?
I'm going to get you to this folder so you don't have to hunt around for it. Korean. Okay. Double click. And then you just drag it off to the right. You'll see that it starts here. And then this is going to be, well, actually, you might just be able to I was trying to get it to maximize. But it looks like you're going to have a little bit of a jump to get to that. Okay? Okay?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Are you going to be here?
Not necessarily.
No, okay, because I mean, so I want to go, the last one I cut it off, and then I want to move back into my
PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay. So down here you've got your PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
It's still open.
And F5 will do
F5.
that, and that'll show me that.
Actually, let's see what happens here. Okay, so we've gone a ways down. We hit escape. We play whatever video we want.
Yeah.
We come back at F5 again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's taking you back to the start. No? Or is that? Yeah, that's back to the start.
Okay, I'll work through it. I mean, technology is always sort of a question mark. Okay, thanks, Dale.
Welcome.
Yeah. Have I got some flex in here? I do, eh? And so. I think so. I think I'm okay here. I get blocked off by that screen, but I should do it okay. Okay, thanks a lot.
Hi guys, welcome to the Calgary Comic Book Expo. Everybody having a good time? Yeah, right on. Okay, today we're going to have a presentation about Korean pop culture going on here. So just a few housekeeping things right off the bat, guys. No flash photography, please. I don't know if Lloyd is comfortable with any videotape or anything.
Sure, fine, anything.
That's fine. You want to videotape it? That's okay. Any pictures are okay. Just no flashes, okay? Cell phones, please turn them to vibrate or turn them off. I'm told we have a very futuristic robot who will come in here and destroy your phone if it goes off in the middle of a presentation. And I don't want to see that. It's pretty scary robots. But yeah, other than that, Lloyd's going to take it over from here. So thank you very much, guys, and enjoy.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Okay, I guess I should probably say something, not so much as an apology, but just the fact that I come from a different perspective. I think that most of you, I'm an academic, University of Calgary, and my interest is really ancient Chinese philosophy. And as part of an involvement in the university and to looking at what's sort of, in a sense, popular, but also interesting to our students, I've looked into the what we call K-wave or K-pop, the popularity of Korean culture, popular culture, and some of the, in a sense, the motivations or the reasons for its popularity, and that's where the presentation today has come out. And we're supposed to finish at 12:30, so I'm going to be probably pretty quick. I'd like to leave some time for questions or comments. You may have, feedback from your perspective. But I do also want to thank the Calgary Comic and Entertainment Expo for inviting me, giving me this chance. So I'm not sure that I really have to, you're so much, I think, aficionado, so you'd know in terms of the popularity of K-Wave. I go into a class and I'm thinking the students are probably, they're new to this, and I find out that they aren't, that they know more about it than I do. And you, as a teacher, you always learn more when you're teaching than the students. So I'm going to skip over that sort of introduction and assumption and just say that there is a lot of popularity around K-Wave. You'll see some of the dollars behind it in a few minutes or seconds here. It wasn't always the case. Popular culture in Korea was actually very poorly accepted among their local population, let alone outside of Korea. So you can see some stats there in terms of the market and foreign international pop and rock music in Korea, holding 60% of the market in the early 90s. The TV broadcasters importing a lot of television programs from outside of Korea. And of course, then the export business in terms of what they could send abroad, oftentimes to Korean communities abroad, like in Calgary, was very limited. So they weren't doing an awful lot, and it was costing them money. And they started to look at this, the government, when it was pointed out to them in a film like Jurassic Park with all of its spin-offs, was worth in terms of income or revenue, the same as sending abroad a 1.5 million Hyundai cars. That there was a big bucks in popular culture, and if they could tap into this in any way, it would help with in terms of balancing their trade and also promoting their image abroad. And they were facing a financial crisis. There was things about the currencies and things that were going on, and they looked at the entertainment sector, developing Korean movies, television, animation, music as a way to even out some of the dollars that they were sending abroad for foreign cultural products. I don't think they anticipated, though, how well they would do. And you saw within Korea a big rise in popularity. So that, if we go back to that previous slide, we're talking about pop music in the early 90s being about, let's see, 15%, 16%, let's see, what are we looking at there? Yeah, so maybe 40% of the market there in the early 90s. And then we get into the late 90s, and it's already, in a sense, gone up from 40 to 60%. So it's increased 50% over a very short period, a few years. And the same thing, the film market jumps from 25% of the Korean locally produced films, domestically produced, going from 25% in 1998 to 50% in 2000. And then Korean content also came to dominate the TV channels, so they weren't importing as much programming. And it also turned off in helped Korea in terms of exports. Their export sales in '97 of films around 472,000 US dollars, and in the short period of about 7 years, they go up to 58 million in terms of exports. And they have also what they call Korean TV dramas, soap operas, part of the K-wave movement. And they also develop cultural tourism. Mainly because of the TV dramas that are shipped abroad into places like Japan, they see a lot of tourists coming in just to tour the sites where the films, the movies, the programs are made, and also some of the sites that are referred to. I've seen a similar phenomena in New Zealand where the Lord of the Rings sites are the product of tourists who go abroad specifically to New Zealand just to see to see those sites. And so you get this big increase in the midst of an economic downturn of tourism coming from Japan and also and from Taiwan, as people who are building on their popularity of or liking these programs, wanting to see where they were filmed. And now I guess I'll show you a little bit of what people were coming to see. Let's see, now I can do this. So these are one of the groups here that very popular in I don't think you're seeing it, but I am. I wonder what's going on here. I guess my tech has left me. Yes, you can. He dragged it for me. This is a problem not working with your own equipment, and I wanted to come just with my own, but there's a copyright concern, and so I had to go work through the exhibitors to through the Expo to make sure that everything was legal. And yeah.
We're working on getting someone.
Thank you very much. So you're saying maybe I close this down or
No,
minimized it?
I think because when you move over, the mouse moves over, so it's extended screen. I might be able to just mirror it. I'm not used to this system though, because I'm not very good with Linux.
Oh, okay, yeah. Anyway, you probably heard that music there, and let me just say something about that. It's a group called Junior Junior, and this was the best-selling album in Korea of 2009. And you can see in terms of looking at the influences of Western culture, Western popular culture, they're very strong. And one of the things we're going to look at near the end is to talk about the motivation or the explanation, interpretation of it. That's okay, thanks a lot. So it's not just me anyway. Okay, so we can move on from that, and let's see if we can go back into our Hi, Dale. So we wanted to show the movie, but it wouldn't, the film.
So double click on it to start it up, then click and drag it off to the right.
Okay, so I double click. Yeah, and
Okay, now it's full screen, so double click
but it's
it.
not coming up there.
Double click it to restore the size. Click and drag the whole window to the right, off the screen.
So I gather this here.
The whole video.
Okay, so how do I do that? I just put it there and then drag it?
Yep. Click and drag
So I
the whole
click
thing.
and drag at the same time?
Okay. So I think you closed it. Open it up.
Okay.
Open the video.
Okay.
Okay, so that's how you move.
Yeah, it's,
So double click. That launches it. Again, get your mouse up. Okay, so it started. You probably want to pause it.
yeah.
Okay, and you probably want to drag the slider all the way to the left.
Now how do I do that? Just overlay?
Drag the slider all the way to the left because it started a bit.
Okay. Darn. So
Yeah, there you go. Now move the mouse up to here, the bar.
this here?
Yeah, so that you can move it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
click and drag to the right, all the way off the screen. And you'll see that it's coming up over here.
Yeah. Okay.
Now you can you can double click on it.
I can't see it anymore though.
Yeah, you'll have to look up here because it's basically two separate screens.
Do I see the mouse up there?
Possibly. Let's see here. If you lose the mouse, you can just keep on dragging it to the left, but it's not coming up. Okay, there's the mouse. So I just hit Alt-Tab to get a different window focus. So there's the mouse. Now it's going to be backwards view, left to right wise.
Okay.
There's the play button. There's the full screen, switching to full screen.
Yeah.
Full screen.
You know what? I think maybe I'm gonna. It's just a little bit too complex, so I'm gonna just go. Unless you want to sit here with me, and I'll work around it later. Okay, then that's just. Okay, you know what we're gonna do is we'll show this a little bit, and then maybe work away from the videos as much as possible, because the technology is just right now beyond. I mean, it's a different operating system. Anyway, this is Junior Junior.
아이 눈만 뜨면 네 생각 전화게 나 사실 너 하나밖에 안 보여 말해봐 나는 내가 말해봐 자리 잡았는지 말해줘 내게 말해줘 말해봐 뽀뽀뽀뽀 주변 사람들은 말은 내가 너무 착각해 이 세상에 그런 사람 어디 흔들리냐고 그걸 몰래 그녀를 몰래 시기하며 하는 말 내가 부럽다면 이건 그대들이지도 않아 Sorry 내가 먼저 내게 빠져버려 baby Shorty 눈에 부셔 숨이 막혀 내가 미쳐 baby
Good. And then I can just, this will be my, and I'm not getting my mouse here again. I can open up this here again. Alt-Tab. Okay, I'm not seeing it, so
What are you trying to get to?
I want to get to the PowerPoint, yeah.
Okay, press and hold the Alt key and then tap the Tab key. Maybe the PowerPoint is over here.
Yeah, it is. I can see it on my screen. So I hit F5.
That's correct.
Okay, so let's work around the films. We'll try and deal with the intellectual content. There are a couple of pictures. That maybe will help out with this. And then we'll get to the content. So we've got the cultural tourism, junior. This is a slide of the audience that they met in Vietnam when they went to perform. So thousands of fans lined up at the airport to get their autographs and to see them there. So again, a very popular group. Now, one of the biggest promoters of K-pop or K-wave in Southeast Asia is a TV drama called Winter Sonata. It's very popular among middle-aged women in East Asia. It's got a lot of traditional values in it, and the populations across East Asia are very much fond of this program. And the lead actor in this, when he visited Japan, thousands of female fans end up in the airport to see him. And the items from the show, the wigs that he wore, the other items, the glasses that he wore, autographs and so on, ended up being able to earn in revenue about $2.3 billion in the academic exchange that went on between Japan and Korea. And this is a picture of the gentleman, a young man. So you can see in terms of this is the face that earned that, really much motivated that large amount of money. Some other examples of K-pop or K-wave. The Girls' Generation Band, a song called G was the song of the decade in 2008. And I don't know, you might have seen the film called The Brotherhood of War. It sold 13 million tickets. Again, they were in a position to produce slick productions, and they took advantage and were able to capitalize on that. Now, really as an academic, this is what I look at. How do I explain or understand K-wave or K-pop and its popularity across East Asia? And the first guess that comes to mind, assumption, is cultural imperialism. It's obviously something that Koreans were sensitive to and worried about as being something that would, in a sense, influence their country quite dramatically. And so they would be worried about, originally it was Japanese culture, and for a point their Japanese popular culture was banned, movies, songs, and so on, books, because at one point prior to 1945, when Japan occupied Korea, they had tried to assimilate the Korean people, forcing them in their schools to speak Japanese, banning Korean newspapers, and so on. And so the government was afraid that what would take place is that the population would then sort of target or be drawn to Japanese popular culture, and there wouldn't be a development of their own resources and own culture. So they banned it, and again, there's sensitivity to cultural imperialism. And they didn't anticipate the effect of American or Western popular culture coming through, and you can see it in the music very much so. So you can understand to a certain degree the K-wave and the K-pop becoming popular as it amalgamates the Western influence into a population that's becoming more economically richer, and so can afford these kinds of things and to put their money into it. And it's kind of ironic, too, because what took place is that when K-Wave then became successful, not only in Korea but outside of Korea, the term pop nationalism took place. And ministers of trade and industry were saying that now Korea had a lot of respect because of the fact that K-Wave and K-pop were so popular outside of Korea. The government was sending delegations to places like Egypt and Thailand and Indonesia promoting the different programming and working on getting subtitles into the movies and so on in different cultures, different languages, so that they would be acceptable to them. And you actually saw a backlash in places like China, but even Japan, where China started to cut quotas or put quotas on South Korean dramas because they were so popular, and they were worried that they were going to be one drawing foreign currencies out of China, but people would be, in a sense, ignoring the local culture. And also within Korea, you find, for example, the film The Brotherhood of War, or The Brotherhood of War. That and another movie, when they were being shown in Seoul, they took up 92% of the theaters. Out of about, let's see, the numbers on the theaters. In Seoul, there were 178 screens. And this movie, The Brotherhood of War, was being shown on 110. Another movie on 53, which was 92%. It left 8% of the movie theaters available to other films that were being shown or produced, which obviously cut down on diversity. So you can understand K-Wave and K-pop in the context of cultural imperialism, not only coming into Korea, but then Korea exporting this kind of influence abroad, and it's being accepted. Another way to understand K-Wave and K-pop is to look at the nationalistic and capitalistic promotion. The Korean Broadcasting Commission, as I said, sent delegations to all over the world to promote K-Wave, and they saw this as, in a sense, as promoting Korea's image abroad. Something that the conservativeness of the government hadn't been open to in the past. They were very traditional, what they promoted as Korean culture, trying to preserve these basic values that they worried about being undermined by outside influences. But when they saw the kind of influence that K-Wave could promote for Korea outside of its borders, and we'll see again in a second some dollars and cents on that, they changed their tune, and so that's the irony of it. And so Korea, instead of being worried about invaded by other cultures, actually became the perpetrator, the invader of other cultures with its own popular culture. It is a fairly well financed, and so they can put out productions that are very slick, fireworks, lots of laser lights and so on in the shows, and that way, in a sense, contributing to their popularity. You can see the dollars and cents sign of it. Here's the estimates on the cultural products, that when they sell something, a cultural product, and boosting the image of Korea abroad, they see associated with that the sale of 4 times the value of Korean commercial products. So they can send a movie abroad or a TV show, and it earns them $1 million. They can expect to sell $4 million worth of Hyundai or other types of cars there as well. And LG, which we probably familiar as a computer screen, they saw their sales jump after they featured the Korean actress Kim Naju in their advertisement. And now they have become the first place in terms of brand recognition among foreign cosmetic brands in Vietnam. So for them, and this is a picture of the young lady, this is the actress here. So they put her up as an advertisement, and lo and behold, they started to see their products sell. And again, utilizing the Korean culture. And so they've since now started to put subtitles onto Korean pop or Korean soap operas, sending them into Vietnam free of charge in order to promote popular culture, Korean culture, there, and then lead to the sale of their products. It seems to be an association. You can't pose it directly. And as a sidebar to this, you've got to recognize too that what they're doing is, to a certain degree, quite managed. I won't say manipulative, but it's behind the word managed. And you do know that plastic surgery in Korea, they have the highest per capita rate of plastic surgery in the world. And a lot of these images are very generic, and they're creating a very specific type of image with a certain purpose. So there's been talk about recent beauty contests in Korea where all of the candidates are very similar in their facial appearances. And a final way to look at this, and probably the richest way, but still and very interesting, one that I like too, having lived in East Asia for some time, if you go into East Asian cities, you'll see how cosmopolitan are. The economics of it, of course, they can draw on different resources, different types of restaurants, but it also draws populations into them where, for example, you'll see in China now, there'll be Africans coming to work in some of the factories in Guangzhou and things of that nature, this sort of transnational aspect. And that creates a very sort of cosmopolitan environment, which then adds to the kind of, and we're used to this in Canada, our multiculturalism, where you have different cultural influences that are feeding on one another, and you create this what we call fusion here, but you could also call it hybridization, where they feed on each other and they create different connections, and you get different cultural creations that are coming out of that. And this is what you can see taking place in Korea, where they draw in the American influence and the Japanese anime influence and manga, and then take the tradition and then add that to it, and you get something that's in a sense quite different, but also has struck a note obviously across East Asia. And with many, I mean, as I said in my class, the students are very alert, smart about these things. And so what you get is what we in this field is called globalization, where globalization has contributed to the mixture and the feedback between different cultures, but has actually led to the development of more localized, different fusion forms of this culture coming into the setting. So you get globalization taking place, the globalization with the local combining to creating something that's quite different and new. And just my final slide here is that you can see what K-Way has done is they've taken the East Asian values, and prior to this there was an observation that Western culture, the pop culture, wasn't that widely accepted in East Asia. There were things that were just that homogenous, and something that I've noted, and my wife, who's also a professor at the University of Calgary, has noted that among East Asians there's more of, in a sense, a tendency to take a softer culture. It's not so much, in a sense, sensational as the way Western culture is, and so there's a different taste there that, in a sense, takes the sort of the dynamism of Western pop culture and then adds it into some East Asian flavor, values like the family and human relations, and then creates this new product that's more acceptable to East Asian audiences and something that struck a note there. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Now I can fool with the technology and maybe show you some of the slides or the videos that I didn't get a chance. There's the G, and then there's the film, and then there's also the soap opera. The soap opera is pretty much, it's a high school setting where the kind of romance that goes on between high school students in Korea, and it's very sort of traditional and a very sort of naive, I wouldn't say naive, but an innocent type of relationship. So it's something that I think the audiences are, in a sense, probably, or something that struck a note again with the audiences there. But outside of that, rather, I think maybe what I'll do is I'll stop here, and we've got 15 minutes left, and so if you guys have any questions or comments, as I said, I've always learned from my classes, and so I don't expect that it's going to be any different here. You maybe have some things that you can say to this as well.
Hold on a second.
Before you were saying how LG screens were saw that increase after they.
Yeah, we go back to that slide, and do know that a lot of these, what they call the chaebol in Korea, these conglomerates, are very much diversified. So we might see, Samsung as electronics, but you're going to see Samsung in all sorts of things, like in real estate and all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm. But you said the LG saw that increase,
but
right?
We know
and
them
then they started to increase the free stuff that they were giving, like Kim Naju or whatever.
Sure. What they were doing is that it wasn't directly related to the cosmetic products that they were selling and the electronics that we know them as selling, But what they were doing is they would take these soap operas, these TV series, and they would put Vietnamese subtitles on them, and then they would give them free of charge to the Vietnamese media producers, the television stations, and they would see in terms of, if you've ever seen movies where all of a sudden you'll see an Apple icon, or there's be an IBM or a Benz symbol that'll crop up there, and what they're doing is there's subtle advertising going on, and they saw this in a sense as accomplishing the same thing.
Okay, I see what you mean there.
Yeah, but it's more than just seeing the symbol. It's also in a sense the value. So if you go down to here, and this becomes the model for beauty. Now, can you imagine, say, I don't know what would be the equivalent in the West, but let's say it's Jennifer Ashton. I'm not Aniston, maybe, I think. Now, that would be the model of beauty. Now, how is an East Asian woman supposed to aspire to something like that?
Yeah.
So, but if you take a look at this actress, her name is Kim Namju, that's obviously easier to attain, and you can do it with the LG cosmetics. Of course, that's the underlying message, and so buy our cosmetics. Yeah, sorry.
So this is about South Korea, basically.
Yeah, it's not about the North.
No, obviously. So one of the issues that I'm seeing is that why South Korea? Why not Hong Kong, which had an established film, media, all that sort of thing? I mean, it was seriously there decades, if not, a long time ago from the British colonization and whatnot. So why Korea? Why not Hong Kong?
Yeah. I think if I can reinterpret that question is why not China? And I ask myself that too, because that's the field that I'm more interested in. And well, I think we did see something similar in Japan, so I think it can be done. It isn't just exclusive to Korea. And I think it's a double-sided answer. One is it says something about China, which I think is a little bit more hesitant and less willing to accept outside influence. I think this is the history. We go back thousands of years and it's like that. So I think this, to a certain degree, you might say it's cultural DNA on the part of China to open itself to these kinds of influences. They're not as willing to do that. And there is a lot of, I think, not only government control, but social control that takes place. But of course that's present, was in Korea as well. But the Korean government was pushed. They had their backs against the wall because of when the International Monetary Fund went into Korea in the end of the 90s and said, look, you open up your market and you're not going to get any loans, and they face bankruptcy. Then they said, okay, we have to find ways in which we're going to earn some foreign currency. And we can recognize, when we see Jurassic Park making these big bucks, that this is an avenue that we can pursue, an opportunity. And so we're willing to, in a sense, open up ourselves to these foreign pop cultural influences and see if they can create something that we can utilize, then in a sense, to tie into this. So I think it was a factor of the times in Korea, to a certain degree, being forced to open up to this degree, and I think also being fortunate too. But Japan went through something similar, and I think to a certain degree still with anime and manga and video games is still making, I think, doing quite well on it. It doesn't seem to be, because it's not the new kid on the block, as obvious to us, but obviously in things like the video games, Japan is still doing very well. And I'm not sure if you have anything to add to that. Obviously, you'd thought about that question.
I think it had mostly to do with the fact that they adopted the Western approaches.
Yeah.
Which were much more influential.
Yeah, sure. And I don't think China, when they do get to that, at some point, I think they're going to be more confident and more willing. And maybe it's not confident, but just accept that this is a fact, and young people are going to, and I think maybe push this. You see through the internet more and more in China this is taking place, but I think there's still limitations. The number of movies that can be sent into China are limited because of box office and so on. And they are now developing their own local cultural industries that are quite good, actually, and so they may be next. But Hong Kong is a special case too. Hong Kong has always had a well-developed movie industry, I thought, but again, it was targeting a particular audience, and so the kind of appeal to, say, the bigger Chinese audience hasn't been as successful, more so in co-productions, I think. But I don't know too much about the local. Obviously, having the big dollars that Korea did, they were able to put out some pretty slick productions. If you do look at Korean movies, they are very well done in terms of production values. The quality of the film, the images are very sharp, they're very good. Yeah. Have many of you watched K-Wave or K-Pop? I know, like, my students, they come in and they know the songs, and this is a tool for them. This oftentimes, because we do teach languages, that this is a channel, a means by which we can encourage students to get involved in the culture. And a lot of our Japanese students they're not Japanese, they're studying Japanese, have developed this interest and the ability because they've been reading manga and they've been watching anime, and they want to know what's being said, and so they get the lingo, the language, and they learn it very quickly, do well in it. So this has actually become a good tool for teaching.
So one of the things that
So one of the things that make the boy and girl groups in South Korea so popular is because the way that the entertainment companies actually control them. They sign them up for very long contracts. They determine their behavior. They tell them who they can date, when they can date, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
They also make sure that they're behaving appropriately,
Yeah.
behaving in the appropriate South Korean way, as it were. And that seems to be resonating to a large extent with many of the Asian countries there. I don't know that that necessarily translates to a North American situation, but certainly within Asia at least, the Confucius, if you want to call it, attitudes about family and whatnot are very, very well accepted in Asia and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's not a question, it's more of a statement.
Yeah, and there's two things there. I think you hit on the values, and I think we need to kind of keep those separate. I mean, if we want to see that there's an intrinsic value in Confucian thinking, and which I would like to do, then I think we want to keep that separate from the managerial or the economic side, because as you note, I've noticed in the group, there's a Japanese group, maybe some of you, is it AK-48? Yeah, and I mean, they're just notorious, if you want to use that word, for being managed, and the images there of members sleeping overnight with their boyfriends and then being taken off of the group. But if you look at these are large groups. These are like, the numbers in them are in the numbers of tens. So you've got 30, 40 of the appearance. If we saw the Gigi's one there, that one I think is something like there's 15 of them, and they're very similar in terms of their facial appearances and so on, and the way they dress. I was trying to figure out why Lady Gaga was taking crayon pop with her, and I just couldn't see it. I mean, I didn't see what was going on there, but I'm not.
I don't think she understood.
What's that?
I don't think she understood, actually.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, maybe you guys know, but that image is very much manipulated and massaged. So, I mean, AK-48 is very famous. If you go to Japan, it's just so long to get tickets to see their performance, which are daily performances there. And you want to get into, I guess it's Akihabara, the economics district and electronics district. And it's very hard to get to see them. But they're very managed. And the fellow who does it doesn't just do it for them. He does the same thing for other groups as well. So there is that dimension of the capitalistic, the profit-seeking that says this is something that we can tap into, and that's become very powerful. But on the other side, I think too, there is that sense. If you watch, say, Winter Sonata, and you can see a relationship that it's interesting to walk around the grounds here, and everywhere I see, well, what's all this about harassment, and why would that be a concern? That would be so many posters up. But you know, what they've done is the male-female relationships are put on a more innocent level, so you don't worry about that as much. So there isn't that sense of, okay, we're always sexual predators in terms of our relationships, so that's a big part of the way we interrelate. But it's more put on a richer relationship. So that I can see as being valuable and part of the Confucian, I think, agenda or thinking. And those kinds of things, as I said, and there's my catchphrase for today, they strike a note, and therefore these things are popular for. I think there's a nostalgia to a certain degree for the times when things were innocent, more innocent, and our relationships weren't so complex, and to a certain degree built on satisfying mutual self-interest, but rather enrichment of both each other.
I see very much that fact that the South Korean media right now reflects very much when we were back in the 1950s with the beach party films and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That innocence translates very well.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think we've moved past the 1950s, but I don't know that South Asia or Asia has in general.
Sure. And just, you know, my own, a couple of minutes left here, my own take on popular culture in Canada. I mean, we've got a TV because my parents-in-law first moved in and they wanted to watch it. And then my dad's living with us, and so he can't do very much and so watches TV a lot. But I just can't watch TV. It just seems that there's so much there. I mean, there are good things, but you really have to look to find it. And everything else I find, geez, I feel really awkward to see a kind of situation if you turn on a late night popular show and it's all about violence and strange sexual relations and teachers or taking advantage of students. And I say, that's not the kind of image that I want to see. That's not the thing that I want to be in my classroom. I want to relate to my students on a much direct and a simpler level than to think that this is going to be one of the things that takes into consideration. And so it really bothers me to watch TV. I do find the things that, you know, through that, like, I don't know, that maybe there's a travel program or something or a movie that's pretty good, but other than that, I find it's hard. And so I think the East Asian, in a sense, they would find something similar. I did live in East Asia for 10 years and really enjoyed the value structure, so I think I can relate. And of course, my wife is from East Asia too, and so she can, to a certain degree, support my perspective. She's very, in a sense, romantic, and I think that's probably quite a good word to describe much of what appeals to East Asians. They like that sort of romantic ideals. I mean, I guess in a point we talked about England at one point, civil knights and that code of honor and things of that nature. Anyway, I guess if I've got a 5-minute warning, it is 12:30, Keith, so I'm going to wrap it up. Are there any comments or questions? Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much for being here. And it's always fun. It's a different culture and a subculture, and I've never been to this kind of thing. So I'll take a few minutes and go through some of the exhibits. Thank you very much. So I'm just going to leave this here.
Sure.
I'm not sure that I need to do anything to pull my USB out or not. Do you know, I guess you're not that technologically. I was wondering, I was told they didn't have access to the internet, but my videos were available, and so I'm just wondering where they were sourced. Is there was in a cloud somewhere, or they weren't on he brought in a different computer, so they weren't on the computer. You must have been, are there cables that go throughout this whole expo, or?
I'm afraid I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. But I know the fellow who tried to help me says, I'm not familiar with the Linux system, and so he couldn't do it. He had problems with it too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's a different operating system. And I don't see where. Do you know how on your computer, if you want to take your USB, there's
It's
a...
got going to eject.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't see it here. So I'm not worried about my USB so much, but I just figured...
Then I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Yeah,